Hello, Pallavi.
Hello, ma'am. Okay, now we are on live. So I think so we can wait for another couple of minutes and then we can start.
Yes, our guest is coming in. It's taking a second or two, I
Yeah,
suppose.
she'll be here in just a few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, here she is.
Yeah, great.
Yes. So Janvi, we
Oh,
are
finally,
now.
yes. One
Welcome.
second, I'll just tell, thank you. I'll just tell my IT person that it worked.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll just tell my IT person that it worked. Oh, okay, already done.
So, Janvi, good evening. You've had a very trying day, I suppose, today, and you're here for us in the evening. Thank you so much. So, Pallavi, I think we are ready whenever you are. We are waiting. Whenever you say, we will go ahead.
Start. Okay.
No.
Yeah, just to another just couple of minutes and then we can start. By 6:05 we can start again.
Okay, whatever you say. So, Janvi, how is the situation in Bombay? Now they're talking about rather Mumbai. I should not say Bombay. That's still something that I'm
True.
not used to yet. The COVID, I think they're talking of curfews and all again. What is happening there?
I think in some of the locations we do have partial curfew
Mm-hmm.
and there is a partial lockdown, but not many places. There are only few pockets where probably they just don't want the cases to spread, and therefore I
Okay,
think that is more of proactive action, and I think it's fair.
right.
And then I think even in terms of the restaurants, they are saying they are they have changed the schedule, and most
Okay,
of the restaurants are getting closed at about 12 or 11 instead of going till 1. So I think these are, I think, good measures
yeah,
as long
yes,
as
yes,
everybody
yes,
is following it.
yes,
But yeah,
yes.
situations are in a way. I think it's on all of us as an individual to kind of look at maybe follow the rules. I think.
That's true. In Pune,
Yeah.
also talking about pocket-wise curfews, like in Mumbai. But I think
Yeah.
Nagpur is going under lockdown, so that's completely under lockdown. Is that right, Pallavi? We are all from different places today, joining up here, and also our audience, I suppose, from all across. So, situation in Maharashtra is a little, but life goes on. Nothing
Yes.
like the
Absolutely.
virtual,
Okay.
nothing like the virtual to help us.
Yes.
Okay, I think so we can start now. With your permission, shall I start?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Vayati System. I'm Pallavi. I'll be your host for today's session. It gives me immense pleasure to be a part of our first episode of Imaginal Talk series on learning and skills development. And to initiate this conversation, we have two wonderful ladies with us. Dr. Mona Shah, our founder and author of the amazing book Millennials to Poise, which is one of the best-selling books on Amazon, and dynamic millennial personality architect Janvi Parab, who is a deputy general manager at Life Spaces and very dear friend of mine. So we are very happy to have you here, Janvi. So nice to see
Thank
you
you.
after a long time.
Yes.
So without taking much of your time, I think so we can start this interesting conversation. So over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, thank you, Pallavi. And first, thank you, Janvi, for being with us. A very hearty welcome once again to all those who have joined this live debut event, Bharati Systems and Research, Imaginal Talk Series on Learning and Skill Development. Let me introduce you first to the idea behind the series. It is conceived to offer very personal perspectives about the role learning has played in our lives and especially in the lives of our guests. The whole idea of learning is undergoing a radical change. There is so much that is thought, spoken, written, experienced, questioned, and even planned in policies that it has left the whole world in a conundrum about its relevance, utility, and so many other questions. Now, coming to Imaginal. What is Imaginal? You'll be interested and surprised to know that Imaginal is the last stage after which the caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. We also know it as the pupa stage. The entire metamorphosis of the butterfly is an almost magical process rarely found elsewhere in the world of living species. For one, the different forms in the metamorphosis are distinct from one another, so distinct that while in a particular stage, it would be difficult to imagine how the next form would appear for those who see it from the outside. I'm sure you're getting the refrain of what I'm trying to say. Further, do you also know that this stage wise development is completely lost on the butterfly too? It does not remember how it looked when it was a caterpillar, and neither does the caterpillar know how it would look in the future when it becomes a butterfly. Miraculous, isn't it? So, in all my 3 decades of experience as a teacher and a professor, and a very strong proponent of all things educational, I frequently came across the lines being repeated. We never really learn anything while in school. It's only when we experience the hard knock of reality that we actually learn. Another question that bogs the learner is why are they subjected to specific inputs and knowledge when their own personal ambition and intent are nowhere close to the subjects they have learned? Much like the caterpillar, I should say, which has no clue what it will become in the future. Most of us go through learning not knowing exactly how it is designed to help us grow into useful and beautiful individuals. Interestingly, though, this view on learning held by multitudes has always been in contradiction to another reality. And what is that? The reality of being that the desire to enroll in good colleges to acquire degrees is equally appealing. And in some cultures, the parents are ready to sacrifice their present for the future of their wards. I don't have to go far, but give you a very recent example of that of Femina Miss India, Manya Singh. Manya Singh was supported by her parents to invest in her ambition despite their meager means. But if you see on the other hand, we have the Gen Z icon, Billie Eilish, who has under her belt already world class awards in music, including the Grammys, which she began winning since she was only 17. She is now all of 20 years. But she has been backed by her parents and she has no other pursuits save for music. Billy has no formal education. She has been homeschooled by her mother. So, at another level, we are also aware that there is no better comparative advantage than that of a highly skilled human resource for any country to do well at the global scale. So, this evening, I shall be asking my guests and viewers why this contradiction. I have presented to you 3 situations, one from the learner's point of view, the other from the parent's point of view, and the third from the national perspective. Why educate oneself if its contribution in one's life lacks clarity or is either forgotten or is even seen as irrelevant? Why does formal education continue to command more premium? Can continuous competency and skilling be the way forward instead of mere academic degrees? These are some of the questions that came to mind and it gave birth to Imaginal. Let me tell you a little bit about VSAR, Vayati Systems and Research. We offer skill-based technical and holistic trainings that are designed for competencies not only to be imbibed, but also to be applied in the course of one's professional life. While most of us are dealing with this conundrum in myriad ways, at Vayati Systems and Research, we thought we should act on it. So here we are with the Imaginal Talk series on learning and development. We present to you a number of guests from diverse backgrounds who will express their ideas on learning and with anecdotes from their own personal journeys. They will share how learning helped, or for that matter, did not help in their own growth and development. We also hope and expect that you post your reactions and comments and engage with our guest, architect and Deputy General Manager, Ms. Janvi Parab, Mahindra Life Spaces, who is our guest for this evening. So, Janvi, thank you for joining us today and agreeing to share your own experiences on this show.
Absolutely my pleasure, and thank you very much, because I think, like you said, I'm sure that journey is going to be interesting, and all the best to you, and of course Pallavi, to take this thing forward, because it's very important. And I think it just there is curiousness, in fact, within me also, to find out, and I would love to kind of join rest of your sessions. But thank you for inviting me, and yeah, I'm looking forward for a healthy discussion.
Thank you. So let me just introduce Janvi Parab to all the guests here. Janvi is an architect, and as I said earlier, she's DGM and a sustainability champion at Mahindra Life Spaces. So Vayati Systems could not have had a better person to kick off its debut talk event. Janvi works in all the areas that we as a firm feel strongly about. She has distinguished herself in acquiring the expertise in climate responsive designs, landscape design, environment management, climate change, strategic projects, thought leadership, corporate social responsibility, and community development programs. In fact, I would like to go a little more in detail because Janvi's trailblazing accomplishments these past 2 decades have to be clarified to all of you, and she has been instrumental in taking the toughest initiatives for the company in Griha, IGBC, and LEED certification. She has helped in developing the sustainability report as per the Global Reporting Initiative framework. She has been using life cycle costs and live building assessment to drive business decisions for resource efficiency. So, in short, not just what goes into the construction of a building, but also the operations and maintenance, the operational part of the building. So she has a holistic view towards construction. She has also established the thought leadership platforms for Mahindra with Terry. She has worked for the development of the Green Army Initiative for communities to bring about behavioral changes, and the target is to reach 1 million citizens. And she has undergone the Women's Leadership Program at SP Jain Institute of Management and Research through Mahindra Life Spaces. She has been chosen to attend this 18-month program. Another recent accomplishment is that she has undergone an online certification course in sustainable business strategy by Harvard Business School. She has been recognized as an aspirational leader in sustainable development and innovation and innovator in business by International Women Leadership Forum not once but twice. So Janvi, this is simply wow. Thank you for coming on our show and speaking to our guests this evening. Let me begin with my first question. Could you describe a key learning that has stayed with you from the past? It could have been either from school or any other informal situation where you may have acquired it, but now it is your own and you make a conscious effort to practice it.
I think the question is kind of provoking a lot of thoughts, and I'm reflecting myself and going back to the school. I think that's the best time where the first, I would say, learning. It's not a learning, but I would say the sense of curiousness. It's always helps you to kind of be up the ladder. It sense it gives you kind of insights that one needs to start inculcating within yourself, that if you're curious for every aspect, that is where in terms of all your learnings, any initiative that you want to drive, you want to strategize, I think all these things comes from the curiousness. So I think it's very important. And as kids, we are very curious, but often that gets missed as you grow older. And I think that is something which is I feel that it should be there intact within you, and you should not never leave that child within you and that curiousness within you. So I think that is something I would like to start my responses to your question. But I think essentially, in terms of learning, I would say school teaches us collaborativeness. I think that's very important. And I think as whether you are in corporate, whether it is a real estate, or you are in FMCG, or you are in any sector, I think it's always about teamwork. When you think about your organization, when you think about the financial stability of your organization, or the intellectual stability of your organization, it's all the heads coming together, all minds coming together. So it's always about being collaborative. How can you get your team? It's not only you as a standalone entity who's driving the entire organization. It's that collaborativeness, and I think that is taught in our schools. The way you get to various kind of you have diversity of kids coming in, and I think that happens whether you're in school, whether you're in college, whether you're in any organization. That diversity brings that learning of being together. So I think collaborativeness is very, very important, key. The other element I would say, as an architect, of course, I would definitely say creativity.
Yes, I was coming to that question. What, after completing your schooling, let's say, and enrolling in higher education, and having gone through a prescribed architecture curriculum, can you say that you have been able to correlate at least 80% of what you learned there with what you are now doing in your professional life? So after school, yes, creativity, you are lucky that your school perhaps fostered that creativity within you. But there are many schools, as we keep reading in the papers also, that thwart creativity, that make people, the young students, not remain curious. They are always told to fall in line and disciplined to such an extent that they are not even able to independently. And all Indian children, as we know, lack that analytical thinking, which is very commonplace in education abroad, school education abroad.
Yes.
So how did it work out? Because you joined architecture because you are a creative person and wanted more vent to it. And what happened in the architecture school, if you can tell us a bit about that?
I think what happened in architecture school is beyond, I would say, creativity. It also kind of, I think a lot of things in terms of, I would say, leadership. A lot of the leadership skills came into through the design studio. So it's basically architecture is gives you that freedom to kind of open yourself, right? Be open, be a kind of there you start looking at new things. You if you love traveling, of course you want to see new structures, you want to see architecture, you want to see cities. And it's not only as a designer, I would say that it just broadens your vision, because it's not only about the build form, but it is also about the cultural aspects of it, how the city is laid, right? How the people are, the diverse nature, and all of these things play a very vital role. So it's not only very, I would say, as an architect, you tend to look at buildings, their elevations, windows, doors, paints, colors. It's not only about that, but it's also about the social infrastructure, which is about people, which is about culture and how the city is laid. And I think that is something which I would say it is more experiential. And I think, like you said, the schooling, right, which happens and which has I would say, a stereotype learning which happens. I think there is high time that, and I think some of the schools are doing a lot of good work in terms of experiential learning. And I think that is something that's a key, and that's a way forward, that something which, all of us and all the schools or all the academies should think about. How do we make the entire education experiential? And I think we being in this situation, which is the pandemic, and I think that has taught us lot of things, right, which earlier we were not thinking. Alternative thinking. We are all now connected virtually, and I think if it just gives opportunity. So I think in every field you need to look at that opportunity. You need to look at how do you think alternatively, how do you think innovatively. And I think that is something which is I think key. And I think through my architectural, that is something which just kept me thinking about new I would say, whether it is new field of learnings, because I didn't only stop about architecture or doing my masters. When I was doing my masters, I wanted to do something which is definitely, as a foundation, it has a foundation of design, but at the same time it is talking about sustainability. And that time sustainability was very new, as a field. Everybody thought that sustainability is very fancy. It wasn't, which is probably now somewhere it is getting decoded. But I think that was, maybe through this kind of curiousness or analytical mind, I thought that I should do something which is more than just architecture.
So I would still like to, try to create a bit of a controversy here, where I asked you whether you are actually applying, say, going by the Pareto of 80-20, at least 80% of what you learned in architecture. Are you still applying?
Yes. In terms of, in fact, in real estate, I'm glad to be part of design and real estate. But I would say that these learnings, whether in terms of, for example, let me cite few examples. I talked about social infrastructure. It's very important as a designer to understand the people for whom you are designing, whether it is a building, whether it is a city. And it's very important to understand their lifestyle, their culture, and that is the origin of design. So I think these are some of the things which which goes on a long way in terms of applying these a kind of strategies within the design. The other thing I feel that from design, there are various, I would say, diversity of curriculum, which talks about the history of architecture, talks about the structural stability, the entire physics, within the curriculum. I think all these things help me in my entire career, whether in terms of in the real estate, when I'm thinking about the target audience for our projects. In terms of marketing, how do you position your product? How do you market? How do you want to sell? What kind of strategy you want to put where for your organization, right? In terms of the financial growth, in terms of the sustainable growth. So I think all these things are, I would say, not 80, I would say more than 100%, because it is on us as an individual to get and what the curriculum or what the format offers, and then I think apply that in various parts of your career.
Oh, that's a really interesting answer you've given, because the onus is now on the individual to apply whatever was taught. This is what I read from your answer. Generally, the whole tendency is to say, "Oh, they teach us nothing back in school." This is how people come out, and they keep thinking that their education has got nothing to do with reality. So I pick this. I hear you. You're saying that the individual must imbibe, must be able to as they proceed in their professional life, be able to pull from whatever they have learned and apply it to the problem on hand. Is that how you would say?
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely,
okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Interesting. So now I go to the next question. Are there any specific instances that you can share where there was a mismatch or a complete irrelevance that you found to the actual work that you are engaged in, and what you have learned over the years in through your schooling and from and say your architecture? Because I'll give you an example. For instance, there has been a clamor in many of the ICSE and CBS, not ICSE schools, and even other schools or open education, where they say, why should we learn math when I want to be an artist, where I want to be a fine artist? For instance, I don't need to know math at all. I don't need to know physics. It's so painful. I can't grapple with those subjects. And is there an option of just leaving them, say, in the 8th standard or 9th, and just doing the subjects that I would like to? And that's why I had given the example of Billie Eilish also. She is homeschooled and she has no other competency as such except writing and making music. So, what is, in your opinion, this kind of an approach? I mean, have you also, in your personal learning, found something like this where you've had to discard it because you did not gain anything from it, or you can't apply it now?
No, I think the answer would be again a little different, because I feel that, let's say, I will take your example. You talked about, let's say, someone has interest in painting. That person is a painter, right? And that person would say that, why do I need to learn math? But my answer would be that if you don't really, learn math, then I think the analytical part, while you're doing your painting, yeah, at times you may have those concepts where, even for that matter, one could be your business. You want to, as a painter, you want to set your own business and establish and become entrepreneur. Now, do you have those skill sets to kind of look at your own business case? Is your business making sense? And for that, math is very important. Like I said, I think for architecture, then why do I need to learn physics? I don't need to learn physics, even I don't need to learn math. But I think that is where your analytical part comes in and your business strategy part comes in. And I think that is something which, all of us need to understand, that somewhere, it cannot be that everything is getting used in everything like that you're doing. But I think it's part and parcel of, things, and it may come at your entire juncture of your own professional career. For example, uh, if I have to talk about CSR, corporate social responsibility, I never thought as a designer or as sustainability person, I would be engaged and I would be driving some of the social initiatives and community engagement programs. But I think if I wouldn't have learned about social sciences or some kind of social, activities, or even, say, even in from the schooling background, some social initiatives, or
Correct. Yes.
the gatherings,
Yes.
if I
Yes.
wouldn't have
Yes.
been part of it, probably the way to even engage with people, talk to people, make them comfortable to understand their needs, I wouldn't have probably,
Yes.
learned that. So I think
Yes.
it's how you want to. It's There is no right or wrong, or I would say it's not. Everything is relevant. There is no relevance kind of a concept. Everything is relevant, but I think which situation, which which skill set would be applied, or what which you have learned throughout your journey in your schooling and curriculum, what gets applied where is something which is very specific and very subjective to that particular situation.
Right. So thank you. That was very elaborate. If I may go to the next question, this is more related to what your profession and what you're doing. So as your span of management, or maybe the job role that changed in your professional journey, did you entirely drop or simply went on adding specific competencies? And the corollary to that, of course, is that did you acquire new skills through training, or you learned them organically? So the first question is, how many did you drop, and how many, did you drop or did you just add? And of course, if you did that, then which are those new skills that you acquired by training and or organically?
I think there's a combination of organic and methodic, I would say. As you grow as a person in corporate world, or in management, I think you need to keep on adding new skills to it. Uh, Not dropping any of those skills, but yes, I would say in my in my case, I feel like I dropped stress. So that was something I dropped, and there was for a certain time, because like I said, I was a designer, and when I shifted I would say I wanted to elaborate or made my entire portfolio broaden, and I thought that sustainability is something which is so holistic in nature, so global, whereas it is as an individual also there is a lot to do, as community also there is a lot to do, and of course as a global, as a nation, of course it is at a global level. So it has various tiers, right? And that is something which excited me to be there. But that was a conscious decision, and at the same time it was a risk taking decision, because I was doing well in my as an architect, I was doing well in my career. But this was little different, which I felt that would add value, and I would be more meaningful to an organization if I also have the skill sets of design and sustainability and everything put together. If I'm able to deliver something better for my organization from a long term growth perspective, that is something which I started thinking on. And and as you think towards that, you want to grow, and as you grow to the next levels, you have to add certain skill sets. So I think I would say leadership, in terms of I was put up, and I would say one of the very few people in within Mahindra Group, that was I was selected for a women leadership program, and that really gave me a platform to analyze myself. Probably, I think the first few exercises that we did was self awareness, and that was very interesting. And through that, I got to know my weaker areas, and which skills you need to develop. And I think I started working on the business acumen, the strategic orientation of the business, the leadership style, critical thinking, because at times it is very important for you to understand and have the linkage between intuitive thinking, analytical thinking, right?
True. Yes.
All of those. And at the same time, at times you have to be very emotional also. So you have to strike a balance between critical and nurturing kind of
True.
situation. So I think those are the things. Being assertive, I think that was one of. I would say that it was very important, and I would give you an example to this. There was one, as such, I was going through this entire women leadership program,
Yes.
and within those 18 months of training, uh, I had opportunity to present something to my MD and CEO. And that time I
Okay.
was presenting and I think you have mentioned about the Mahindra Terry Center of Excellence, which is
Yes.
which is a research-based organization.
Right.
Research that we are doing with Terry, they being highest in research as a research organization, and we wanted to collaboratively do something which is a state of the art in terms of the center, the research lab, or even the kind of building that we want to establish. So that added us a lot of responsibility. How can we be unique? How can we contribute to the society and the real estate and all of that? And I think I was trying to put the business case to
Right.
my
Mhm.
senior management, and I think that is where I would say
Right.
this interaction happened in a way that some of the points or some of the business angle was probably at times not fitting into the entire finances
Right.
from a financial perspective or a funding
True.
perspective. And I
True.
think I could manage to kind of convince the management that why it is really important to put this kind of a work, and that assertiveness of maybe saying things which are right, but at the same time you have that respect for
True.
the management, and at the
In
same
fact,
time
I
you
if
clearly say
what
that.
yes, I mean when you said that you have to have this balance between the nurturer in you and the kind of analytical person in you.
Yes.
I cannot agree more because when I was a prof, I think all my students used to be very scared of me, extremely scared of me. But they also came back and told me whenever they had a lot of courage after they had you know begun working, and they used to come and visit me. They used to say, "Ma'am, if there's anybody in that institute whom we feel can help us, it's only you. We have no other person whom we can be confident about, despite you being so strict." So yes, it used to be that thing where we have to choose between the time we have, the resources we have, and the goals that we have set for ourselves and for our students. As a professor, I was always struggling on that, and I can very well understand what you must be going through also with something as I mean generally considered soft as sustainability, right?
True.
So
True.
that to get a buy-in within the organization can be really tough for you. I feel for you, yes, but I think you're doing a great job of it. So with this I can go to the next question, which was uh, would you agree that prior formal learning enables us to be better prepared to find solutions to the problems, to any problem, or we don't always need prior say learning or skill around that?
I think the answer is in two folds. One is yes and one is no.
Mhm.
I'll tell you why. Yes is where typically formal, and I'm bucketing it as formal. Let's say training like you do Six Sigma, or you do business communication or presentation skills, and that kind of
Right.
very
Yeah.
formal kind of trainings. And at the same time, you have other sorts of trainings in terms of the outbound trainings, where you get to learn. Say you're going through an obstacle course, or
Right.
you're climbing a wall, right? You're
Right.
doing these kind of team bonding exercises or activities. I think whether it is formal or informal, every training, I would say, gives us some insights or some takeaways. So I think it's mix of, it's not only prior formal trainings, but I think it has to be a good combination and a balanced combination between formal and informal, and
Right.
get those learnings, and then apply it in a situation which demands those kind of learning. So I would say
Right.
it's both, and we should not only look at the formal kind of learnings and uh, learn out of those.
Right. So there's something more, that formal plus. It's how we have our wits around us to actually apply the formal training also. That separates us from the rest. Yeah, thank you. That was interesting. And can I go to the next question?
Yes.
This is in your, of course, I'm hoping that the audience is also asking and waiting to comment and ask us a few questions, because we would really like you, Janvi, to address some of those comments and questions that may be coming up. So my next question is, in your opinion, what specific learning could help in contemporary work life? So I would like you to give some examples, because I suppose our audience here, even if all of them are not from the built environment, I still feel that there have to be some skills that we need, which perhaps have not got adequately focused upon in our earlier decades of education and learning systems, and which are necessary now, or even those specific to the built environment, because some from the audience are also from there. So if you could just please throw light on that.
I think I would, let me put it this way, that one of the trigger for even looking at sustainability as a profession was
Yes.
not to restrict myself to the real estate only, because sustainability is a field which is so apt for, and which is so relevant for all the sectors, whether you talk about oil and gas, construction, infrastructure, FMCG, everything, the food sector, everything. So I think that was one of my trigger why I really wanted to excel and be sustainability champion. But I would say, in terms of specific learnings, I think adaptability, which is very common across. You don't have to be a designer, or you don't have to be an architect, but adaptability is so relevant. Whether you look at adaptive designs, and I think I would say that why just it is so relevant. In fact, as we speak, we are in pandemic. We have looked at new way of working, new way of life. We are into new normal, and this is all about adaptability. We have already adapted new lives, new way of living, and try to adapt new technologies. People have not even thought about that we would do so many things virtually. So I think that is something which is very important for all of us, irrespective of which sector we are in. The other thing is um, setting goals and targets, and not
Right.
just, I would say, not just for the I mean, in a professional life. I think it's very important for personal life also, to have that strike a balance and have goals and settings for both your lives, professional and personal. Third, I would say, which is give time to yourself. Give time to yourself. You should have your me time to look at your health, look at your fitness in your own way. It need not be physical, but it is also about mental well-being. So
Right.
that is also very important, which typically in the corporate world you call it as work-life balance. And I feel that it is not only about work and balancing the work, but it is also about how do you balance your own health, your own mental well-being, physical well-being, everything. So I think
Right.
these are some of the things. The other thing is, which is very important, I would say, is define your circle. One is your inner circle, and one is your outer circle. Inner circle is, you have to understand that, it's only about you, or is it about you and your spouse or your parents? And then outer circle, who are the people in outer circles? Is it your relatives, your friends, family, who all? So I think it's very important to have that defined, and these are some of the learnings which probably people may find these are little vague or not really stereotype, but these are very important, and these are some of the I would say learnings which, irrespective of our profession, we should, all of us need to give some thought to this.
I couldn't agree more with this, because now I always keep reading and seeing data, and from very good sources, of course, like The Economist or all these. They have actually brought out a special issue on the kind of toll that is loneliness is taking on societies abroad, which are known to be more isolated and individualistic. And we haven't, on the other hand, in India, had so many mental health issues. Uh, Nothing, at least data it doesn't show that there has been that extreme loneliness or whatever that we have faced, at least not out yet. But I think when you talk of the inner and the outer, some of our cultures are able to handle this inner and outer a little more easily than perhaps compared to some other cultures. That is a kind of broad conclusion I can draw from it, because we include so many people, and like you have included sustainability, which is encompassing the whole globe. So right from your individual to the whole world, I guess your circle of influence and your circle of, as you say, you've defined the circle very, very broadly for yourself. So I now come to something which, as I said, the larger problems, and you are already, I think, very close to what my next question was going to be. I was going to ask you something like what kind of focus would you have on the larger problems that surround us? One of which is sustainability, one of which is youth skill development, digitalization, or access to development, or a role of stakeholders. What learning do you think people really do not understand when they plan something? They don't really think of stakeholders. They don't really think of the actions that their actions will have on a larger set of people. So all this is becoming very important now. And what learning do you think is necessary such that every individual can begin practicing some awareness of this, or even get skilled enough to perform it in their jobs? So a few of those, if you can just throw light on these larger issues that are troubling humankind, so to say, and they are bringing the whole globe closer. So I can't go and pollute in my country. I'm accountable to the whole of the world, for instance. So these kind of things are becoming very collective in their nature. So quickly, just a few minutes, because I would like the audience also to engage with you. So if you can just throw light on that, I would be happy. Thanks.
So I think you talked about sustainability, which is very, very global. But I would say that it starts from individual. It starts from me. It starts from you, and it starts from our own actions. So, like you said, it is very important whether it is youth skill development, or it is sustainability, or any other global or macro sort of issues. The first thing is, like you said, is very important, that who are the stakeholders, who are the beneficiaries. uh, Stakeholder engagement, I would say, engagement and management becomes very key in nature for all these issues, whether it is micro issue or macro issue, because everybody at the end of every situation thinks about what is in it for me. Why am I doing, right? And when you think about even sustainability or youth skill development, who are my target audience? Who are my stakeholders? What is going to get, I mean, how are they going to get benefited, is something which is a larger question which needs to be addressed. And therefore our influence from our actions on the community, and likewise it goes, it's a ripple effect, right? And therefore you have to understand that these are some of the I would say learnings, or it's more of insights, and you have to be a little more analytical. So when you
Right.
think about, like for example, sustainability, every action starts from you. In fact,
True.
I would give you an example of how it goes from micro to macro. You talked about one of my initiative which we started in Mahindra Life Spaces, which is called the Green Army,
Right.
and we have an objective of creating 1 million caring citizens. Now, how we have looked at it is every so our target audience is 9 to 10 years old kids. They are our
Hmm.
change agents, and what we are doing is we are actually trying to bring them to experiential learning. What we are trying to do tell them is how do we inculcate green habits into their lifestyle,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they
Yes.
become our influencers, and how do they then go back to their families, relatives, community, to then be influenced and tell or spread the word of green living. And through
Correct.
that, we are trying to give spread that message. So I think every it starts from every individual, so it's very important for us to know the stakeholders. The other thing is communication. How communication, the effective communication, because often we have seen that, whether even if you look at the marketing of every product, whether it is FMCG product or a real estate product, whether it is a building, how do you position it, how do you communicate to your customers what you are selling, how are you positioning, how are you what benefit this product will give you. So it's very important that communication goes a long way. uh, Similarly, I have talked about collaboration. That is again something which goes a long way, because it is all about how do you bring that collaborativeness within your teams, within your organization, and within your community,
Yes.
so that
Yes.
you think
True.
about a long term impact.
Yes,
And
and these are all, as you are saying, these are learned skills. These are
these
not
are learned
skills
skills.
which are just imbibed as we go along. They can be learned. So they can be,
Absolutely.
yes, yes, interesting. So I think I'm coming to the end of. If you can just, my last question now to you is, if you can help us to understand two or three key
Hmm.
skills for the future. I mean, just try to think that what is it that we need and we must know, and we should begin to learn those skills right here, right now. So, which would those be, in your opinion?
I
Apart
think
from whatever you have said, I know there are so many that you have touched upon, but something which you feel is not yet so commonplace, and we need to have them built in us.
I think so far what I have not probably said, and what I would like to say is, I think one is which I haven't talked about is perseverance. It's very
Okay.
important to kind of continue your efforts, no matter whatever difficulty you're facing, whatever challenges that you're facing. One must continue to kind of put your effort 100% or 200% to kind of achieve that goal. So I think perseverance is very important. You have to be patient to look at the long term kind of achievement. And I think whatever couple of initiatives that I talked about, or experience that I talked about, I have been part of Mahindra Life Spaces for more than now 9 years. And this is my longest tenure in any organization. But believe me, I think when I am talking about sustainability, I'm talking about sustainability of people also. And if you really want to drive, and it talks about long term impact, and if you really want to create long term impact, you have to be sustainable in terms of whatever you do, and you have to build patience, and you need to set your goals and targets and work towards it. The other thing is about self sacrifice. And I think, why am I saying self sacrifice? Because at times we hesitate to say no, and at times for a larger good, rather than giving, say, not up to the mark, say output. If you are not confident, you should learn to say no. I can't do this, or I would take some time, or I need some additional skill sets to kind of deliver that
Ask
output.
for them. Yes.
Ask
For them. Yes.
Yes.
Interesting.
And the third thing is, I would say, something related to decisions. I would say maybe quality of decisions. Why?
Yes.
Because at times I have always, there are some people who talks about what to say, left brain thinking, right brain thinking, analytical, emotional, and all of that. But I think it's very important to for you to uh, get that skill set of whole brain thinking. It's no more now, analytical. Earlier, a lot of times the way people were talking about was so analytical, but now the way we are heading towards, we have so many new issues. We have climate change as one of the global issues. We have pandemic, right? And I think everybody, we have gone through these challenges, and what we have understood is there is
Yes.
emotional side to it. There is other. It's not only about analytical, but it is also about sensing. It is also about emotional connect.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
so I think it's in terms of thinking, you have to be empathetic. And at the same time you have to be critical. Like I said, nurture and
Yes.
critical.
Yes.
I think you have to have
Yes.
that balance between thinking. So I think these
Yes.
are some of the things which will definitely go a long way, whether you are in digitization or and of course next level to it, where you're talking about virtual reality and
Right.
all
Right.
these new things.
Yeah. So I think now there's. I'm so sorry, Janvi, but there's very little time left now, and you have been so elaborate and so involved in all this. I really cannot appreciate this more, but I think the time has come now for me to kind of wrap up those key skills that you spoke about, so
Yes.
that our audience also benefits from that. And I, like a student, I have taken down some notes. I hope I will be able to. You've really given very candid response, and I can summarize that the few skills that have enabled your own personal and professional growth, and which you recommend also, are somewhere in the line of always being curious, being collaborative, always indulge in alternate thinking. And I would like to mention a book that I have recently read, which is by Stephen Covey. I recommend it to all the people here. It is
Okay.
called The Third Alternative. So exactly what you said at the end, which was the whole brain thinking, the ability to look beyond just to the binary thinking, just one, either yes or no, and the third, which can be an amalgamation of all those contradictory, seemingly contradictory positions that we take, and we create a third alternative. So Stephen Covey has written a very good book around that. So I guess apart from that, you have talked about being a better person, as in dropping stress, and that's so important. Some of the lifestyle changes that many I personally have made, and I'm sure the audience also, many of them are there, must be around this, where they have tried to drop stress from their lives. They are more enthusiastic in what they do. And we are we have to have a combination of what is organic and methodic, both. So the skills that you have said are sustainability, adaptability, setting targets, and of course, time to yourself. So I hope I have been able to do justice. And of course, the key skills for the future, you say, are perseverance, self-sacrifice, and whole brain thinking. So the ability to say no is what you said. Now, I think I should give this over to Pallavi. And if we can take a few audience questions and comments, that would be very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Janvi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was an amazing conversation. Initially, I thought 1 hour will be very long, but then I didn't realize that 1 hour is already over. Okay, so we have many questions in our comments, so we won't be able to take all of those. So we'll just try to answer as many as we can due to the time constraint. So we have question from Rajiv. It's for Janavi. Could you share some of the time-bound sustainability goals you or your organizations under your leadership are pursuing professionally?
Okay, some of the goals, right? Sustainability goals.
Yes.
Okay, so we have, in fact, at the group level, I would say on a broader level, we have a goal of 2040, which talks about carbon neutrality, which gets, I mean, everything under the carbon topic, where it is about energy, it is about water, it is about waste. It is also about some part of supply chain. How do you engage your supply chain? How do you work towards getting water neutral? Your development that you build is water neutral, carbon neutral, and yes, and all of those kind of things. Also, some part of the community, because when you talk about sustainability goals and targets, it's also about what sustainability targets you are looking at a planet level, to the environment. The other is society, which is very important apart from the environment. And the third part is your own business, which
Individual.
is financial sustainability. So it has to have balance of all three, verticals or pillars, I would say, of sustainability: people, planet, and profit.
Okay, that's great. Okay, next question is from Mayuri. She's asking, as most of us are working from home in this pandemic, we hear comments like work has become more hectic while working from home and time management has become challenging. How do you encourage your team to find time and focus on new learnings?
Okay, so that, of course, even I couldn't agree more. Even I feel that it has become hectic, and I feel that 24 hours are less for us. But I think the mantra, and this comes from my coach. She was coaching me during my women leadership program. She told me that when you start your day, you have to say that these are my tasks, or these are the things which I want to do today, and I have time to complete all these tasks and all the work that I have planned for today. So the minute you say that you have time, you will find time to complete all your tasks. And believe me,
Wow.
in that entire day, you need to nurture your hobby. If you believe in nurturing your hobby, you will find that 5 minutes, 2 minutes to just sit back. If you want to sing something, so for example, I always tell all my colleagues and team members and whoever it is, that for example, the way I do it when I'm driving, I like to sing. So I just put on the music and I would sing, and that is my meditation. So I'm actually I'm trying to go through the entire meditation, because for everybody it's different, right? So my definition is probably driving, singing songs which I love, singing, and it's my time, it's me time. So it's very important that you should give time to yourself. So I think these are some of the things which I always tell them. Cook, take a break. And I think one thing which is given, I think all of us have learned, and we have become a great cook. We have all become a Australia master chef in our own lives, because we have done so much during the lockdown, and that just gives us an opportunity to do something else, and to get engaged in a variety of, I think, activities. And that is something which pandemic has taught us. And I think we should look at it in a positive way, that how can we manage our time in a day, giving time to each of the activities that we want to really do it.
Oh, that was amazing. It was simple solution, but was very to the point.
Pallavi, I
Great.
think there is a question from a Jahnavi to another Jahnavi. Janvi Singh is our associate, as you know, and she has a question. Janvi, I have to tell you that she's a learning experience designer, and
Okay.
she. I think she has a good question here about schooling and learning in schools and all, and also a second on that. It's the affirmations that when you say in the morning, "I will complete this work," it kind of gets done because it's a positive affirmation. So we have to choose our affirmations and go with them. So nice. I also learned something, Janvi. Thank you.
Okay, can we take one more question, please? We have two more. One is from Janvi and one is from Nidhi. So I'll go with the Janvi Singh. I agree with Janvi that we learn important life skills in formal choosing years. However, where school worlds overfail is in delivery and evaluation. Having spent pretty much all my life cursing the schooling system in India, I have turned a little more sanguine in my assignment, and I have revised my view to reflect the fact that in the designers of the syllabus had their heart in the right place, but the executives that is teachers and the methods of evaluation that is a test of memory have.
So the answer is, I would say, I would like to link this with the initiative which I talked about, right, of the Green Army, and I think that example is something which gives us that in every field. One is that how do we bring change in whatever we are associated with, right, and then therefore, in if we really want to bring that change, who are our who could be those change agents. So whether, for example, in our case, we chose kids because we thought that it's very easy for a grown up or for a parent to learn from a kid, because no one will say no to the kid, right? So whatever we are teaching them, and they are teaching the elder ones or their friends, no one can say no. They have to learn it. So I think we have to then identify the right change agents or influencers, whether it is our own life, whether it is our organization or institute. We need to identify those right influencers and change agents to drive things and bring that change. And I think always change is a good thing to have. But at the same time, if you have something which is has been, I would say, it has a foundation, right? You need to take the positives from that foundation and then grow to the next level, and not to forget and not to eliminate what was there done just because you want to bring the change. I hope I'm able to give the answer, because it was very difficult, and it needs more of a conversation. So I would love to have conversation with other Janvi to get in, that interactive mode, and get to know about the basis of this question. So I'm really, interested, curious to know what she's thinking.
Yeah, surely we can organize that soon. Okay, so last question, as we are running of time. This question is from Nidhi. She wants to know, uh, it's for you, of course. Does she believe that developers who talk about green development and IGBC rating now, probably for each and every building of their, really follow actually on ground and give benefits to the end customer?
Okay. So I would say, one is that question is, we are all responsible for it. Like I said, I think whether, and it goes back to the experience which I shared for corporate social responsibility. It is your own individual responsibility to make things happen. And therefore, even in the developer community, the way you have seen the change even in the real estate, that it was highly unorganized sector, and now if you see, it has become organized. It is becoming organized, right? So everything starts from you. If you really feel that you want to bring change, for example, what we typically do when we talk about sustainable development or green building development, we were the early adopters, and I would say that we have 100% portfolio which is green. But the way we do it is through communicating right things, what needs to be done and implemented on ground, and engage stakeholders. And I think one of the where she probably is coming from, where it gets lost, is the implementation. So a lot of developers do talk about sustainable development, do talk about green building initiatives, IGBC, green rated, Griha rated, LEED rated, platinum rating, 4-star, 3-star, everything. But at the beginning, it is all about marketing a product, but it is very important, and I would say 90% of your efforts should or needs to go in executing and in implementation stage, where you need to engage with every stakeholder. And therefore, when I was talking to Dr. Mona, I was talking about who are your stakeholders, how do you engage with them. It's about stakeholder engagement and management. How do you inform each of the stakeholder their own responsibility? So for example, if I am an architect, what is my responsibility, what is my role in the entire green building initiative? Likewise, a contractor should also know that what is his or her role in executing the entire product. So if these responsibilities are known and if it gets executed, then whatever we commit as developer gets executed and gets implemented. So you will never find gaps between what you had promised and what you deliver, and you will find that the beneficiaries are your customers, who are actually experiencing these benefits in their occupation or maintenance period. So they actually get tangibly benefited because of these initiatives.
I believe that's the strategy what Mahindra is using, and they're able to fulfill the stakeholders' expectations, right? What they
You couldn't
promise, they
have said it
deliver.
better. True. And not just the customer, if you actually think, developers make communities. So think of the children who grow up in those buildings. They would have healthier lives. So if you think of communities, then your circle of influence has actually grown. And then it seems even more justified that you kind of pay upfront for perhaps a premium on that building when it is being constructed. So you couldn't have said it better, Janvi. Thank you.
Okay, so the time has come to conclude today's session. It was a wonderful session for sure. So I thank you, two beautiful ladies. And on behalf of Vayati System, I thank Janvi for joining us, and a heartfelt greetings to all our viewers. I'm happy to inform you all that the copy of this talk will be recorded on our official YouTube channel. So if you have missed out anything, you can check out in a couple of days. We will upload this video. So that's it for today. Stay tuned with Vayati for more exciting discussions in future. Till then, goodbye. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay home. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
Bye.
for inviting me, and all the best to all the next series of talks that you're going to host.
Thank you so much, Jan. Bye. Bye. Thank you
Bye.
all.
Bye.